Evening at the Movies is a proud member of the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network. Other shows in the network include Mass Debaters, The Sip List, Crushgasm, Love Is Black, Men Are the Prize, Crime Rewind, and Literature Reapers. You can find out all about our shows and more at idnmtrpodcastnetwork.com. Happy listening. You are now entering the world of a movie review. A world full of drama, joy, ridicule, movie spoilers, unpopular opinions, and adult humor for as far as the eye can see. Welcome to An Evening at the Movies.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to your favorite movie-based podcast. This is An Evening at the Movies. I am Kasey. I am for life. And I am very excited to be here. Why? Because we are continuing the tradition and we are talking about all things great about a certain favorite author of mine, but we cannot get into that yet until I introduce my very special guest that is here with us today. He's back. He's amazing. He is like me for life. He is going down on Sunday in both of our fantasy leagues. He is, well, I'll let him tell you about all the stuff that he has going on. He's a jack of many trades, but I digress. So, welcome back to the show, Mr. Harvey Laguerre.
Thank you, Kasey. Yes, it is Harvey. Yes. What am I? I am fantasy football player extraordinaire, as your boy Kasey knows. And it's okay.
Bullshit.
Yeah, we can dream. Like I said, reality is going to punch you dead in your face or smash you in the nose like a certain person we're going to talk about a little bit later on. I am host of Men Are the P.R.I.Z.E podcast, co-host of Love Is Black, the podcast with the hot wife, P.R.I.Z.E, a proud member of the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network, also co-host of Black Like Me with one of our other members, that is Josh. And I have a hot wife and 4 kids, which means I am tired. That's what that all meant. But once in a while, that I can get on here with my brethren talking about our favorite author, I'm always down to do it. I love me some SK, and we're going to talk about, I think this is either 1A or 1B in terms of my favorite Stephen King movie / book.
Well, I mean, if we're not talking about 1A or 1A and 1B, I think are pretty much what we're going to be discussing either today or tomorrow.
Right.
So, but we'll get to tomorrow's episode at a later point in the show.
Yes.
Because we need to focus our attention on the fact that, as everybody knows, we have a tradition here on An Evening at the Movies where every September we pay homage to the amazing wonderment that is the literary genius that is Stephen King. Because September 21st is his birthday. The man will be turning 77 years old this September. Not sure exactly when this episode will be dropping in the grand scheme of things, but we're probably looking at, if you're watching this not live, we're right around the birthday date. So either way, every week we just need to happy birthday, Mr. King. Happy 77. We know we're not as young as we used to be. Harvey and I are experts in that. I mean,
That's
you
true.
can't necessarily tell from the fact that Harvey's got the Just for Men hair dye brushed into his mustache.
This is au natural, baby. This is me. All me. No fillers, baby. No fillers.
So, before I do need to definitely shout out the absent co-host, though, before we get going, because she had every intention of being here with us today. She was looking forward. Today's movie and tomorrow's episode are two movies that she absolutely positively loves, and she really wanted to be here, but a little positive test came back after her surgery. So we wish you a speedy recovery, Amanda,
Come back
and
soon.
hopefully you'll be at least up to half-assing it tomorrow with us for that episode. But Harvey and I will try and get by without you, and we will try and do greatness. It would be a little less burden on us if you were here, but I think Harvey and I can handle it.
We will do the
It'll be
best we can.
yes. So, all of that said, happy birthday to Stephen King, Mr. 77 years old, somewhere in the grand scheme of things. Um, but yes, we need to talk about baby Drew Barrymore, and we're going to talk about the wonderment that is the movie Firestarter.
I love that movie. I love that book. I love that movie.
It's
It's just campy. It's just
well, a lot of stuff from that era of King's career, especially movie wise, may have had a little bit of a quote unquote campy feel to it, or cliche, or for people who don't realize. I mean, this is probably what, 5 movies into the development of his cinematic library. I mean, you started out with Carrie and Salem's Lot and The Shining. We won't go down that road again. We went down that road a year ago. But yeah, you're in that window with Firestarter and The Dead Zone and Christine and all of that. And not anything bad per se against, those movies. Just, I don't think there was a lot of people in Hollywood that fully knew how to interpret and bring the wonderment that is Stephen King's vision to life. So even doing my research for this episode, Mark Lester, the director for the movie, was not even the original director that they had tapped to direct this movie. Even it was supposed to be a gentleman who people may or may not know, but he ended up being the director of his next movie, Christine, but also the legendary director of the iconic horror movie Halloween. John Carpenter was supposed to direct Firestarter. So
I was looking for trying to find Christine to watch. I got to watch the promo from it, and it reminded me that from the brilliant minds of Stephen King and John Carpenter, even the promo is kind of it's fun. It would have been interesting if he had been there for Firestarter. Who knows what that would have been like? But
yeah, and well, I feel like we'll get into because we always, when we get to deep into the discussion, we always make sure we cover the likes and the dislikes about the certain movie that we're talking about. And there's definitely some dissenting opinions out there about this movie and whether or not it has greatness involved to it at all. But before we really get into that, though, we've always got the background information for everybody. So just so everybody knows, Firestarter released on May 11th, 1984. 40 years old. Almost as old as Harvey and I.
almost.
Not quite.
Almost.
Like I said, it was directed by Mark Lester, released by Universal Pictures, had a $12 million budget, and made a whopping $5.1 million profit. So had a $17.1 million box office. But, I mean, in 1984 standards, that probably translates to a little bit more.
Right, definitely.
By today's, with inflation. if you have not seen Firestarter and would like to see Firestarter after watching this episode, you can find it currently streaming on the Max, not the restaurant from Saved by the Bell, but the streaming app. Um, and before we get into the discussion, we have a website that we in the network do not speak highly of. As a matter of fact, we have a phrase that goes along with this website. That phrase being,
Fuck 'em, fuck 'em, fuck 'em, fuck 'em. I can't say that. That's fuck 'em. F. We need a hashtag. Fuck 'em.
we do need a hashtag, and you know what? I think I will add that to our informational scroll that is currently, I forgot to put up at the start of the show, but is currently scrolling across the bottom of the screen. So all of our social media is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And then at the end, hashtag fuck Rotten Tomatoes.
Fuck 'em. First, they're rotten.
So
Fuck them even more. They suck to begin with because they're rotten tomatoes.
yes, more often than not, the Rotten Tomato scores are 100% inaccurate with our views. So if you have not looked it up, Harvey, would you like to wager a guess as to what you think Rotten Tomatoes gave this movie?
42.
So close.
Ooh.
Just like you on Sunday when it's time to make the cuts for guillotine. Missed it by that much. 40%.
What? Okay. I was being too nice. Whatever. Drew, come on. The cast is fun. It's got George C. Scott. Come on, people.
I mean, at the end of the day, you may not necessarily recognize the names when you look at the credits at the beginning of the movie, but I can guarantee you, well, everybody is going to know who Drew Barrymore is.
Of course.
Let's be honest. I mean, because even baby Drew Barrymore, 98% of the population has, well, no, I wager 100% of the population. They like E.T., but you've seen E.T., so you know who baby Drew Barrymore is. But yeah, you've seen stuff with George C. Scott in it.
Of course.
You've seen stuff with Martin Sheen in it. I mean, if you haven't, you know who his crazy freaking children are. Charlie. Not as much Emilio, but definitely all Charlie. So, but yeah, there's a solid cast in the movie. But yeah, 40% just seems a little bit off to me. I'm not saying it's necessarily the greatest adaptation of his movies or of his books, but you know, it's not Stand By Me, it's not Misery,
No,
it's not The Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption. I mean,
The Shining,
Misery. Yeah.
I mean, he's got a plethora. He's got a list. Quite the catalog.
There's a lot of greatness out there, and especially in today's age where directors are starting to get handed a lot more time for their movies to play out, where, you know, back when we were kids, I don't know if you remember that, but like a lot of movies, if you only got like 90 minutes to maybe an hour and 45 minutes of running time.
True.
And now it's like, if you don't run like over 2 to 2.5 hours, you're not a great movie anymore.
I like a good long movie, and not everybody can do it. So, you know, it happens.
No. Well, at long movies, you can flesh out the details, and you can afford to have a little bit of time to play with the characters and develop a little psychological element. And I like the psychological element of movies.
Me too.
That's one of the main reasons why I'm a huge fan of Silence of the Lambs. Is that's a very psychological, like Anthony Hopkins playing with our fucking heads for 2 hours of movie. No, but
There's a good psychological when we talk about this movie. There's, obviously we'll get into character and such, but this has some real psychological. It's more a testament to Stephen King and what he wrote, but there's some real mental mind play, mind fuckery here in this movie, which I think is the reason I like it. I think we'll talk about it. I'll tell you who my favorite character is, but it's a testament to his writing and just kind of the evil that is sitting in that mind of his. Another reason I love it.
Well, I think on that note, then I think Band-Aid. Let's just rip that shit off.
Mm-hmm.
Harvey Laguerre for life. Who is your favorite character of this movie?
It's Rainbird, and I love the way George C. Scott plays this character. I don't know if we can just talk about this. If you've seen Firestarter, if you've read it, or if you haven't, this is, and by the way, Heather Locklear is in this movie. This is pre-super hot Heather Locklear, but it's still young Heather. But that's something we'll talk about later. But
Pre-TJ Hooker.
Pre-TJ Hooker. So she was fully clothed, But but for this part, what you have is somebody purposely making a connection, building a fake relationship with the child just so he can screw her over later. And it's dirty, but how well done it was. And it's in a movie. The movie should have been longer. This book felt to me like it would be a phenomenal series. Like if you did this book like a season, like 10, 12 episodes, and then you could really build out just how evil Rainbird's character is. And
like
I know
a limited series.
Yeah, like a limited series. And I know they redid it. I don't know. Did they do it as a movie or did they do it as a series? Because I didn't watch that other one.
The remake, it was a movie.
Yeah, it was a movie.
The one was Zac Efron.
Oh, was Zac Efron Rainbird in that?
No, Zac Efron.
Oh, he was the dad. He was the dad.
The dad.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, I personally, I still have not seen it for the pure fact that, in my opinion, nothing can hold a candle to the original. And sorry, guys, I'm not there. The Rona took me out.
It's all right. You feel better. We'll talk another time.
Hopefully tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then Amanda also chimed in with Dr. Sleep was 2.5 hours, and it rocked.
Mm-hmm.
Evidently, because the remake isn't terrible, but it isn't great. Well, Amanda has a love affair with Zac Efron, so.
Oh, well, who doesn't? Who doesn't love Zac Efron? Hello.
So, just wanted to shout out to my buddy Caleb who's watching. So, good morning, Caleb. Enjoy, and definitely 100% though. I am in agreement with Harvey on the rain tree thing. There's times in this movie that I will agree with some of what the critics say, where like the character development. I was trying. Who doesn't? Where the character development may fall a little bit flat per se, and it doesn't come across as like a great performance per se, but George C. Scott is definitely one of those characters that, like, I feel like he delivers. Like, to me, I fell in love with the guy the first time I saw him. He was in my favorite version of A Christmas Carol, playing Ebenezer Scrooge.
Okay.
And I fell in love with that movie. And then shortly thereafter, I saw him in this. So, like, definitely. But he gets in and really gets under your skin with that creepy, like, there's zero reason at all for him other than his own evil, plots in the back of his mind as to why he wants anything to do with this little freaking 5-6-year-old little girl, other than the fact that, she has
some powers, some abilities.
Yeah, well, and my co-host is amazing because she literally not even on the show, but she can get in my head. But that whole thunderstorm scene,
Yeah, yes. That's when you
where
that's when you feel the evil. When he's
yeah,
that's because he
just
played her like a fiddle. He really did. Oh my god.
oh, absolutely 100%, and even to the extent like he gets and like that scene is where it really starts to feel like grimy and
Yeah.
like, and then they're like sitting there on the couch talking and almost freaking cuddling together,
Mm-hmm.
and he's building that bond with her, and
Right.
then you know obviously the lights come back on and blah 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 blah, but then you get to that final scene and it really helps to develop the whole like Charlie's being conflict, she's being pulled by her love for her father, but then you know you've got Raintree that's also got a Rainbird that's also got the psychological hold,
Mm-hmm.
and he's pulling her, and she's all like, "Who do I go with?" And all, I mean,
Yeah, and I think what movie we talking about today? Okay.
we're talking about Firestarter, Caleb. Definitely, it's the movie I was watching the other night at work, bud. So
I think
definitely,
oh
you need
sorry.
to check it out. No, 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 you're fine.
I think the reason this would be great as like a limited series is because I feel like the beginning of this movie would be the first episode. The end of the movie will be the last episode. And in the middle is all that time with Rainbird building this connection with Charlie. All this time, all these connections, and telling her all these stories. Because at the end, it's really quick. I mean, Dadco shows up, and Rainbird says something. That whole conflict that she has between her father
Mm-hmm.
and Rainbird, that's really the crux of this movie. And if you build up that at the end when her dad's telling her he's a bad guy and she's like, no, he was there, blah blah blah, we were in the rain, we talked, he told me his story, there'd be more. But it was so quick. In the movie it's like she thinks about it for a second, but then wait a minute, that's my dad and that's it. You want more of that and that's what I think. You get more time to build that conflict within her. But he was great, and it was just every little thing I enjoyed, and it was just creepy. Yeah.
And even like Amanda said too, um, he wasn't just playing Charlie;
Mm-hmm.
he was playing all them fools.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was playing Martin Sheen's character. He was like all of them. He was the master manipulator in the whole grand scheme of things.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like the shop was, Raintree was pulling the freaking Rainbird. Why don't you keep going back to
Yeah.
Raintree? But Rainbird was pulling the puppet strings on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like the shop was evil, but Rainbird
Mm-hmm.
was more evil than the shop.
And that's a whole other thing you could do. That's a whole, maybe an episode, if you do the limited series, is the whole thing of the shop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is the shop? And then you take that out of that, and then you got a limited series on just what the shop is. There's so much that could be done with it. I think it would be really interesting. One thing I noticed while watching this movie, and it's completely out of it, is that, and you mentioned 80 Christmas carols when you really loved George C. Scott. It came out the same year as Firestarter. Like later on in that year, and I didn't realize how close they are. What I also picked up is that Martin Sheen was quite the fan of Stephen King. He's a bad guy in more than one of his movies. He's a bad guy in this one.
Yeah.
He's a bad guy in The Dead Zone. Like, he's done some stuff. And I'm like, okay. And I will always see him as, President Bartlett from West Wing. But I just thought that was interesting. There's certain people who fit into his movies. And I'm like, oh, just another reason why I love it. And I loved him in this. Who knew that I would love him so much more in about 15 to 17 years later? Well,
Yeah, and The West Wing is just an amazingly phenomenal show. I don't care what anybody who hosts a show called Masturbators, says.
They don't know. Mm-mm. They don't know.
But that's okay though, because Harvey has gotten Josh to break on through to the other side,
Oh yes. Oh yes.
and Josh is loving the West Wing. So,
Mhm.
but definitely, yeah, 100%. There's so much though about that character that's just amazing. To me, George C. Scott stole the whole fucking
Yep.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things I found while doing my research though was literally almost like a precognition kind of thing where Drew Barrymore and her mom, as the story goes, were at the store and she happened to see a copy of the book, and her mom made the comment, "Oh, that girl on that cover kind of sort of looks like you." So she bought the book and ended up Drew Barrymore read the book and she's like, "Oh my god, that's me. I'm Charlie the Firestarter." And she ended up getting the part later
Oh,
in the
that's
movie.
interesting. Oh, that's interesting. That's really
As the
interesting.
story goes, I don't know
Hmm.
just how much, truth there is to that,
Okay.
but, you know,
Mhm. Okay.
so
That's good to know.
definitely. Um, Also, George C. Scott was not the original actor cast to play Rain Bird. It actually was a classically trained actor by the name of Burt Lancaster.
Oh. Oh. That would have been interesting.
Yeah. Um, Rumor has it though. Well, not rumor, but they actually had started filming most of the movie, and Burt Lancaster had heart issues and had to have heart surgery,
Okay.
and it totally shut down production. So the studio went ahead and recast the part and had George C. Scott come in and take over. And they basically went back to square one and started all over without
Okay.
the initial star. Go
That
figure.
would that would have been interesting, but he was always that's Burt Lancaster's always is the, typical white male movie star.
Hmm.
I don't know how well that would have worked because George C. Scott wasn't that
I
attractive
don't
guy.
either.
Yeah. I don't feel like any woman was like, "Oh my god, look at him in Patton. Oh my god, he's so sexy in that uniform." I don't think that was ever the thing. Lancaster, I don't know. But I don't know. That's interesting info.
I
I
mean,
like it.
at the end of the day, Patton came out and women all over the world were swooning when they flocked to the movie theater. I mean, it wasn't his acting ability that won him the Oscar. It was the female love he was getting for that portrayal.
Okay.
I mean, no, just kidding. George C. Scott is an amazingly talented actor.
Damn right.
At the end of the, I mean, he's fucking phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And my co-host will agree with me, and if she doesn't, she's fired. So, um, what? Uh, let's see. We talked about the John Carpenter connection. That initially John Carpenter was supposed to be the one to direct said movie. Oh, yeah, the eye patch thing. So, one of the most menacing aspects of that Rainbird character, the last half hour ish of the movie, was the eye patch over the left eye.
Right.
To me, anyway, it helped develop the evilness of that character. Ironically, um, that appearance was due to an infection that was caused by the contact lenses that he had to wear earlier in the film.
Mhm.
So the eye was not quite healed, and he had to wear it to complete the filming of the scenes.
Oh, wow. So by accident, but then
Little
it
things
worked
like
out.
that can add
Mhm.
so much. Oh yeah, it because I think it even added another super menacing aspect to that character on top of everything else.
Agreed.
So, so um, I do actually have one. We have kind of sort of a game that we have been developing on the show, but I actually have one. I guess it's not really would you rather, but it's more your personal favorite, and I'm going to pose the question to Harvey for this one. So, um, Charlie from Firestarter or Gert from E.T. Favorite Drew Barrymore.
Oh, it's Charlie easily. I can honestly tell you. I mean, E.T. is a classic film. It's not one of my favorites, and I have a connection to Firestarter that I can't really explain. So that's not even close. I absolutely love that movie. So E.T. I mean, she's in it. She's part of it, but she's not the hook. To me, she's the hook in Firestarter. That relationship between her and Rainbird. So yeah, I would always. It's definitely Charlie for me.
To me, she's a part of what makes ET work, but Firestarter is really for me where she comes out, for lack of a better term, fire blazing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's me. I'm going to, lead this movie, and the movie's going to succeed or fail on the merit of my talent as an actress. And
I have one for you. Can I throw this question back at you?
absolutely.
All right. So David Keith plays Daddy. He plays Andy McGee.
Uh-huh.
Do we take Andy McGee from Firestarter or Jack Parkman from Major League 2?
Oh! I think of the two, I think Parkman is probably my favorite just because of the fact that he's such an asshole in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I mean, if you take Jack Parkman out of the equation, do you really get that evolution from sellout Ricky Vaughn and the evolution back to Wild Thing Ricky Vaughn?
True.
Because you have that conflict and battle back and forth between the two. And literally for 98% of the movie, he's, getting beat up and hammered all over the ball. I mean, he throws one pitch to Parkman and Parkman knocks it out of the ballpark every freaking time they play the White Sox. Or even, and then even as when they're teammates, they're still back and forth, all of that. I just think that character is a lot more entertaining for me.
Mm-hmm.
Not
I hear it.
saying that he's. I feel like he may be one of the characters that may have fallen a little bit, quote unquote, flat in this movie, per se. But at the same time, he doesn't really have. He's got a significant portion of the story he has to carry,
Right.
but it's still not as much as some of the other characters have to carry.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
No, I agree with you. I mean, he's the foundation. I mean, you need him because we need to understand where Charlie has these powers or these abilities come from, and he's the doting father and all that. But it's really to set up Charlie and her experience and her struggle and things she's going through, and with Stephen King, he writes great stories. I think another thing one thing I love about Stephen is that the good guys eventually win, but you always lose some of them, and he doesn't. Not everybody survives.
Yeah.
There's some people have to die. So I mean, I remember watching this even as a kid. I remember thinking, okay, they killed the mom off pretty quick, and hopefully.
Oh yeah, Heather Locklear had maybe 3 lines in the whole movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she was in there quick. But I remember thinking in the end, the way it's going to work out is for her. I mean, because for Charlie to survive, something's going to have to happen to Dad for her to do what she has to do. So in my head, I know they're going to kill the dad too. But probably by then I'd read the book also. But Stephen King will kill some of the good people so that overall you win, that type of thing. So
no, I mean everybody who's watched the show for the last 3.5 years knows that one of, if not my favorite Stephen King movies of all time is The Green Mile. And the prime example of that exact thing is you get towards the end of the movie and you find out that Michael Clark Duncan's character, John Coffey, is in prison for a crime that he did not commit, has absolutely nothing to, and like his power, he transfers the visions of what happened to, Tom Hanks's character, and the truth is out there now. But yet, at the end of the day, Stephen King still has to kill off John Coffey at the end. It's like, we're not gonna, let him ride off into the sunset and live happily ever after. You get that traditional twisted, fucked up Stephen King ending where, bam.
That's interesting. Does the good guy win at the end of Green Mile?
I don't personally, for me, I don't necessarily think the good guy lives happily ever after. I mean, I've heard people say that, even Tom Hanks's character could be considered a good guy, but to have to live the life that he's lived for the amount of time he's had to live and watch, his wife die, his kids die, everybody he's ever loved die, I think that brings up the whole question on immortality is, you don't, especially at younger, selfish ages, you think about the fact that, oh, I would love to live forever. But at the end of the day, would you really like to live forever? You don't think about the fact that, you're going to see everybody that you ever loved pass away. Anybody you ever build a relationship with is going to pass away, and you'll still be left sitting there carrying the bag. That's a hell of a burden to have to carry on your heart and not know if and or when, good Lord willing, it's going to be your turn to go.
I think every movie or book I've read or seen from Stephen King, there's always, I don't know if it's like a B plot or something different to me. And I think it's pretty obvious that Green Mile has a very spiritual, religious kind of factor to it. It's John Coffey is Absolutely. Jesus Christ, and they kill him. And to me, I think that, nobody really wins, because I remember thinking, even though we know who he is, and it's reminiscent of Jesus Christ, he's supposed to be this deed and all that, but he still dies. And the same thing with John Coffey, he died. And then I always felt like Tom Hanks's character in that movie kind of represents humanity. If you can kind of figure out, Jesus dies for everybody and all that, and then John Coffey, and then Tom Hanks, this is your punishment. I did this for you, but what you have to deal with now is that forever you have to live with that type of thing. I think that's just one of the reasons I've always loved Stephen King, because there's just levels to the stuff that he comes up with. So,
well, they even say at the end of the movie when he's talking that when the events of the movie take place, his kids are already grown up and out of the house and on their own. So that goes to show you just how old that character is at that point. And this is back in the Great Depression. And the movie takes place, at the turn of the millennium. So 70 years down the road. And somebody who's probably already 40, 45 years old, and then add another 70 years on to his life. That's how long at that point he was made to carry the burden of, making one of God's true creation or beautiful creations ride the lightning. So,
yeah. Well,
we went off in left field for that one.
I know, that's my fault. We talk about Stephen King movies. I go to different direction.
No,
yeah.
it I feel like it's a good thing that it's probably just you and I today, because if we add the third equation to the mix, oh Lord, we'd be freaking left field, right field, center field, infield.
all all bunch of extra crust, all bunch of extra stuff. But now we get back to the best. Stick to
Because
fire.
there's so much different stuff that you know we can cover, and I feel like we're gonna get deep into it tomorrow as well because tomorrow's movie is just gonna be just as freaking amazing.
Yep.
But so I guess let's get to the generic aspect of it. Is there really anything about this movie that you didn't particularly care for, sir?
The only thing that I didn't care for, and I don't know, this might be nitpicky, but I also think I think there's a reason for it. The the relationship between father and daughter felt a little uncomfortable to me. And I have three daughters. I'm a girl dad. So we just put that out there. But it was really huggy, really kissy. At times, it almost felt like he wasn't with his daughter. It almost felt like, to me, sometimes it felt like he was with his wife at times. It felt a little bit extra.
And there's 20 years age difference between the two of them.
Right. And it's father daughter, which is understandable. It just felt a little extra. But at the same time, I think the reason it was so caked on, so extra, is because one of obviously what these characters have gone through, but also it needed to be a really strong relationship to combat what Rainbird was going to be. It couldn't just be a father-daughter who were, they're pretty cool with each other. They had to be really tight. Because eventually Rainbird, when this is done right, he really gets into her mind. He really would eventually force her to make a decision. So I think that relationship has to be tight and a little bit above board, maybe a little bit too much. That's it. And some of the stuff just didn't make sense to me. There's stuff that they could have done. Honestly, if they really wanted them dead, this movie would have lasted 9 minutes. They could have just killed them and moved on. And they would always walk up to them, like when they walk up to them at the lake. They didn't want to kill them. They wanted to, test them out and such. But they could have just killed him and then went and took her. Like there was just stuff that they could do. And then they would all show up at the house and they would all be standing around them. You could just kill him. They could have just done it. It would have been done with.
Well, that was my whole thought, was like literally they're having lunch with freaking Art Carney and his wife.
Right.
I forget the guy's name. But like how many of them show up in that parade of the shop, and they're all just, you've got his wife, Art Carney, the dad, and Drew Barrymore.
Right.
But then like literally like a whole circle of people shoulder to shoulder throughout the front yard. It's like, could you not have just literally pulled a gun, shot the adults, and kidnapped the freaking girl?
Yeah. They could have done it, and it just shows how idiotic the shop was, because it took 2 seconds for Rainbird to say, "Hey, I'm just gonna shoot them. I'm not gonna kill them. I'm just gonna knock them out so we can take them." How easy was that? Why is it took him to figure that out? They've been chasing him for years. Yeah, and that's what it took. It took 2 seconds. Also, how did they not think that the shop wasn't gonna find them at the lake? Like, why would you go somewhere obvious? Like, that didn't make sense to me either. Obviously, they know everywhere you go. You go somewhere where they'll be able to find you. That lake house wasn't like hidden. They knew it belonged to somebody we're related to. Why would you go there? You got to go in the woods. You got to hide. You got to do something. They didn't even hide. Like, that was ridiculous.
They introduced the lake house,
and
it's literally like it's Grandpa's house.
Right. What the hell?
Do you not think a government agency is going to think of checking your
They had somebody. Yeah, they had somebody in the town who was just waiting for them to show up. What the hell? And I'm like, you have to suspend disbelief. That's basically it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's Stephen King, so obviously
Right.
you have to suspend disbelief
Mm-hmm.
throughout the entire process of the movie. But it's not for everybody. But at the same time, Harvey and I have great taste, and we love
Mm-hmm.
the
It's still my favorite Stephen King movie. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean I can't really, constructively
Oh
criticize
no,
what was done. But come on.
oh no. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's the
Mm-hmm.
whole premise of an evening at the movies is the fact that we've talked about hundreds of great movies on this show, but at the same time, we've also nitpicked little aspects of all of these different movies too. So,
Mm-hmm.
we're not just, kissing the ass of, every movie that ever comes on the
Mm-hmm.
show. But I think along the same lines though as to what like you were saying, like the very instant the movie starts, literally it's like father and daughter racing down the street in New York City.
Right.
Like you get a little bit of backstory as to why once they get in the cab and they're headed for the airport and he
Right.
has the flashback, but you don't really get a whole lot of that. Along the same lines, I think I like your idea of the fact that if you make this like a limited series and do like 10 or 12 episodes,
Mm-hmm.
you can really start to delve into some of the backstory for um, the family.
Right.
You can also get into a little bit more information about the shop. You can even delve into some of the backstory as to why Rainbird is the way he is and how he comes into and plays a factor in, because at the end of the day, 2 hours to tell this whole entire story is not a whole hell of a lot of time.
Not enough at all.
You
Not
you
enough.
really need a lot more to fully understand and appreciate um, everything that's going on. And even like Amanda said when she chimed in earlier, the remake isn't terrible, but it isn't great either. So
Here's another thing I have a question about.
okay,
Why'd they kill the mom?
I don't. Well, I mean, why'd they kill the dad?
Well, they didn't kill the dad. I mean, they did, but Rainbird did. The shop didn't.
Yeah, true.
But why they kill? I mean, in the end, why wouldn't they want to test her too? She had powers also, right?
Yeah, because that's I saw some discussion board discussion back and forth about it because you have like the dad has his own ability, the
Mhm.
mom has her own ability, and okay, I'm not making the hand gestures, but they come together
Mhm.
and you know when a father and a mother love each other so much, I guess in a way that almost kind of sort of fits though because you have when a male psychic comes together with a female psychic, they come together and you know, a super psychic is created from all of their psychic abilities,
Mhm.
but it make because a whole, especially in the beginning, a whole lot of it is there's still questions about what exactly you have going on with even the father and Charlie.
Mhm.
Like nobody completely understands. Like I, be, I remember a statement coming up where like they made reference to the fact that okay, in I think it was 8 years time when she becomes a teenager, and I think this is in reference to the whole puberty aspect of everything, and you get to that, the hormones are running rampant through the body, and because everything is triggered by her emotion,
Mhm.
what exactly is that amount of hormone running rampant through her body going to cause? How is it going to cause her to react? And could it even be like a nuclear bomb going off?
Yeah. They stretched it there a little bit.
I think that was a little bit far.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you take that out of the equation. You know, if you buy into that whole theory, though, you know, everything running wild in her body at that time and how emotional people get at that point in their life, you know, there could be trouble on the horizon.
I mean, there's clearly a connection if you really think about it. How
Yeah.
interesting would this been if Firestarter comes first? Eventually, dad dies, mom has already passed away. She moves on and she moves in and lives, and maybe she gets adopted by a single mother. And a few
Yeah.
years later, she's Carrie. She's got these powers.
I
These
I definitely saw the connection between the two movies because there is a lot of connect. I mean, it's not necessarily directly the same ability,
right,
but even the way that Mark Lester and Brian De Palma portrayed everything in those two movies,
right.
it's very. I mean, you've got that emotionally. Everything is emotionally driven with Carrie, but yet the same thing could be said. That's an interesting theory. I mean, you almost, if you wanted to create a sick, twisted little world out there, I mean, the last time you see Charlie in this movie, she and the old man are walking into the New York Times to
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote tell their story.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah. How interesting would that have been if, maybe they try to tell the story, they go, and because the shop is a government agency and they kind of stop
mm-hmm.
the story from coming out, she lives with those people, but maybe Art Carney's character dies and it's just her and the woman, and maybe she kind of loses it because she loses her husband, and then all of this kind of leads to all this stuff. I mean, I don't think those two characters are supposed to be connected because Carrie's first,
Oh
but
yeah,
I think it would have been really interesting because you could have kept that going. We're supposed to love Charlie and we still love Carrie, but we then understand all the crap that she's been through, all the stuff that she's been through, essentially losing two moms, and then all the crap that she even
yeah.
talks about it with her dad in the movie. Dad, will
Mm-hmm.
I ever be normal? Will I ever get to go back to school and whatever? So she
Yeah.
eventually wants to do that. Then she goes to school and then they treat her like that. Like, I would connect those. I mean, the time doesn't work, but I think that would be so interesting because she just goes through so much stuff. She kills the
Yeah.
people at the end of Firestarter. Then you have her just fuck up everybody at the high school and Carrie. I think that would be crazy. Oh, goodness, I love it. Love it.
That wow. I You have a great mind for fiction, Mr. Harvey.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That 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 is an amazing twisted story. Almost the what if aspect
Yeah.
of
Mm.
fan fiction.
Mm-hmm.
That could that literally would be an
Oh,
interesting
I don't
story
write
too.
fan fiction, but I may write one. I may one. I have
I've
another
never
idea at the end of this. I'll tell you before, because otherwise we'll never finish. But we'll keep going.
no, yeah. And we're getting to that point, so I really want to before we get to our quote unquote rating of the movie, uh, give everybody a chance to um, definitely throw out the fact of what was it about this movie that you absolutely fell in love with.
Um, what did I fall? One, I like the idea of a child with powers. I love the idea of kids in supernatural situations. So I love horror movies with kids. I love Children of the Corn. I love The Omen. Um, my favorite horror movie of all time, The Exorcist. I love seeing kids in crazy situations like that. I
Mm-hmm.
love that stuff. So to see, and then she's so innocent, but and all the stuff, and I like how they filmed it. And it's this little girl who you would not expect to do anything crazy, but then when it's time, it gets hot in there, and they're blowing the wind, and her hair's floating in the breeze, and all this stuff. I love that. I love what they do. I love the idea of kids not being kids. Creepy kids are scarier than creepy adults anytime. Anytime to me. Damien is one of the creepiest characters I've ever seen in The Omen, or just I don't have time for all these things.
No, I mean literally like Damien, Reagan in The Exorcist.
Yep.
Charlie. I mean, yeah, we literally could. I mean, even
what's his name from Home Alone? What movie was he in? He was in a horror movie too.
The Good Son.
He was creepy as hell in The Good Son.
Yes.
Oh my God. Oh,
and for those of you who don't remember this, because it wasn't out for very freaking long, but you literally went from Home Alone and Kevin McAllister to the exact opposite of Kevin McAllister in The Good Son.
And it didn't even matter. I think he did that because he didn't want to be typecast, and it didn't matter because he's still typecast. Like no matter what, we're not putting him in horror movies. We want to see him beating up the bad guys when he was badass in The Good Son.
No, I mean even Elijah Wood in that movie was freaking amazing. You can't have the good and evil back and forth butting heads without two amazing actors, and definitely. We may have to put that on this freaking schedule and have Harvey come back and discuss The Good Son with us.
Dude.
That would.
I love that idea. I love the idea. So just to kind of finish that thought, I think what did it for me was seeing kids put in situations where they're not supposed to be in. And if you find the right kid to play the right part, they're really good actors. So she was great for this part. Not even for the acting, because I don't feel like there was a lot of acting. I felt like there's a little girl who was just, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. And she did it. And even the part, and she's young, and some shit happens to her, and she's dealing with it. Like the whole thing that ends up having her kind of hurt her mom. She's a kid, and she's emotional, and that's what happens. And then in the hotel, in the lake house, where she gets all emotional, like this stuff doesn't happen. Adults can't handle this stuff. You put a kid in this situation, and they freak out even more. I like seeing when you place kids in unnatural situations and see what they do. And I think that's what I liked. I really liked her portrayal of Charlie in this. And I loved reading, and I loved the book. I love Firestarter. So I guess it's so cool. So that's what made me fall in love with it.
The book is absolutely 100% amazing. It's an incredible story, and it's one of those and for both today's episode and tomorrow's episode as well. When we discuss doing both of these episodes, I sat back and watched both movies, but I also went back and read the books too.
Yeah.
Just because, especially the early King stuff where you really get into, this is still a time when he's really deep rooted in his horror origins. We've talked about it before on the show where today he almost has his own personally developed genre.
True.
It's not just horror, it's not just thriller, it's not just sci-fi. It's a King book, for lack of a better term. But yeah, there's so much, and we'll definitely get into it again more tomorrow as well. But this is a great movie, in my opinion, in every sense of the word, and I enjoy it. But even going back and rereading the book, I still feel like there's so much more that could have been done with this movie.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That would have rounded it out and made it an even better cinematic experience. So definitely, I'm going to highly recommend that if you have not, 1, picked up the book, 2, picked out the movie. 1, HBO Max. 2, you might want to grab a hold of the book on Amazon or wherever you buy books at. because let's be honest, the man's not getting any younger. And once he is gone from this earth, the price of his literature is going to go through the freaking ceiling.
True.
So if you are interested, you might need to pick up the books now while you can, because we've got 77 years behind us. Not sure how many we're going to have in front of us. So there is all of that. But if you were to give the movie a rating out of 5, what would you give the movie, bud?
There's I have like two different ratings for this movie in terms of, and because we're movie heads. I'm a movie. I like film. I like cinema and stuff like that. So in terms of a movie, it's a 2 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what I love, in terms of my love for Stephen King movies, it's a 4. And that's more my love of Stephen King, my enjoyment, and my recognition that it's really, really, really hard to put Stephen King ideas to film. That there's only so
It really
much
is.
he has such a mind. His ideas sometimes are warped, sometimes are ridiculous. You can almost never really convey what he's trying to say in film, so you can only go so far.
Yeah.
So he's meant for series. I don't think he's meant for movies. The stuff he writes, like The Green Mile, great movie, would have been so good as a limited series. Like you take some of the stuff he does and you run with it, gives you more opportunity to kind of open up character and relationships and all that stuff, because he always sticks something in there. The good guy, something happens, somebody dies, and all this stuff, and you can ramp up to something and then get to the ending. So as a movie, it's not that great of a movie. I won't lie to you, but it's my favorite Stephen King movie because I love him and I love the portrayal and I love the idea. But I would definitely, you watch that once. I'd watch it like 20 times before I watch it again this morning. But, and this is early before people really figured out how to do his movies, how to do his books and make them movies. Because even The Dead Zone is a little wonky too. But
well, and along the same lines of what you were talking about, though, too, if you look at some of the stuff that he cinematically has been labeled as a pure classic, Misery, Stand By Me, Shawshank Redemption. So if you just take those 3 alone, those are completely, and I absolutely 100% agree. Love The Green Mile. Absolutely 100%. Misery, Stand By Me, and Shawshank, though, as far as plot goes, very simplistic, and there isn't really a whole lot of weird, zany Stephen King type shenanigans going on. So it's a little bit easier for Frank Darabont or Rob Reiner to take that and
agreed
run with it.
His best movies are the ones that are not supernatural. It's when he just has it, when it's just because he's a phenomenal. You can take away his horror stuff and he still has a phenomenal catalog.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, you can take out the horror stuff. In Misery is still amazing. Shawshank is not horror at all. Stand By Me is otherworldly to me. That's a whole other discussion. I know you've talked about Stand By Me, but that's friendship. He writes. He's so good. You're right. He is his own separate part of the library. There's fiction, non-fiction. He is just king. He's amazing.
For me personally, I do not care how many times I see Stand By Me. You get to that ending where, you've got Will Wheaton and River Phoenix saying, quote unquote, goodbye to each other, and River Phoenix's character walking away, and then all of a sudden he fades off into nothing, and you get that whole always being the peacemaker, tried to break up a fight in a restaurant, he got stabbed in the throat and he died. And then literally like just a handful of years later, you get the whole real life situation where the OD in front of the Viper Room and River Phoenix is gone.
Yeah.
So, but if you want to get into that whole discussion, go back and I believe it's episode 3 of our 250 some odd episodes we have, where Amanda and I talk about all things that are Stand By Me. It was an amazing episode that we had to record twice because Amanda fucked up the recording, and I'm not gonna lie, it's all
You
her.
didn't mind talking about it twice. You are fine.
Oh
Stop.
no, absolutely not. I will say this though, before, and I will give you my rating as soon as I'm done. But definitely, I'm not a huge fan of re-recording because it's hard to recapture that magic
True.
a
True.
second time.
Mhm.
So, but with all that said, I'm going to agree with Harvey. Definitely, personally, this movie is a 4 out of 5 easily. It's a fun, enjoyable watch for me. I was going to go probably 2.5 out of 5 if you want to break it down and analyze it, beat by beat, you know, for its actual quality cinema,
Mhm.
you know. But, we're movie lovers. We don't have to analyze stuff for, its cinematic greatness. We can sit back as movie lovers and just enjoy the fact that it's a movie. Enjoy it for what it is.
True.
That's what an evening at the movies is about. And at the end of the day, we're glad everybody is here enjoying. And uh, with all of that said, though, I do want to shout out the amazing success that we are having on the show. Um, our live episodes, especially on Twitter/X, are getting viewed. We're doing amazing numbers and like a lot more than we were ever doing before. And we're having great success on YouTube and all of that as well. So um, definitely, this again why we don't call the listeners the dozens anymore, and we're upgrading it to the hundreds because you guys are showing up each and every week by the hundreds to support the show and show your love. So we appreciate you guys all so much, and we will keep turning out amazing content each and every week. And we hope you guys all definitely come back. Harvey, would you like to shout out all of your podcast wonderment and everything that you've got coming up on the show as well?
All right. Well, thank you for having me. Talking about one of my favorites. I could talk about this movie slash book slash Stephen King anytime. Congrats on all the success that you and Amanda are having for this show. This is awesome. I'm so glad people are watching and listening, and I expect even bigger things from you guys. I'm proud of you guys. Well done. Um, you can find me, of course, at harveylaguerre.com. That is where Men Are the Prize, the podcast is. As of our live recording today, the next episode will drop on Saturday of my summer sessions. I think I have one more after that for the summer, and then I will believe then January when season 4 will come into effect. Love is Black, the podcast. That you can just go to Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts and listen to Love is Black, the podcast. This season has been us writing the great love story that is me and Carice. We're getting to the end of that, and then we've got some fun stuff coming. Of course, Black
I'm telling
Like Me.
you, publish the fuck out of that story. It is a great story.
Thank
If you
you. We
guys
are.
love, if you guys love audio, or even once it gets to that point, I highly recommend this. You guys need to listen. This story is amazing, and both Harvey and Carice both have an amazing perspective for this story. 100%.
Thank you, Kasey. I definitely appreciate that. We are going to publish it. That is the point. We're writing it. Then when this season is done, we can edit it and put it together.
I need an autograph copy.
Oh, you know that. You know that. Then we've got the ending. We just got to get to it, and we're getting close. Black Like Me that I'm doing. It's me and Josh, one of the members of the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network. This is just listen to it. We're talking about being called Oreos. There's 2 black men talking about it. We've done 3 episodes so far. We had Kendra for the second one. We had Dre for the third one. We got to have a few more coming. We're going to have a really good season. This was a great podcast, great discussion. And of course, our drafts, the most fun when you get the whole network together. We don't get to have everybody as much as we can because Casey's out there making that loot. We don't get the whole network. It's hard because we can't. Kasey has to work. Like who, paying bills or doing the drafts. Kasey's decided he has to pay the bills.
Right.
So
at the end of the day, though, even if Harvey ends up with more wins than me, it's still a hollow victory because
agreed.
He's not beating me because I'm not there to defend my greatness of all the wins that I already have. So,
and that's why I haven't won in a long time, because you're not there. I need you there so I can kick your ass and then pass you. Because if I start winning now, that's all you're going to say. Wasn't there. You didn't really beat me. I need you back. I need you back here, start kicking your ass. So when I go past I can look you dead in the eye as I'm driving past you, just so you know. And that's okay. But we miss you on the drafts. But it's all fun. Yeah, it's fun when we can get together. And anytime I can talk to anybody in the network about movies or anything or music. Here's what I was going to say, and this would be quite the undertaking. You love Stephen King, you love the movies, and you talk about it. This would require you to do this, I feel like maybe months in advance. But there's 30 days in September.
Mm-hmm.
You should really do an episode a day. Because Stephen King has so many. Because if you're talking about the books or you're talking about the movies, if you're talking about the movies, you can at least do one a day. Every day, and they don't have to all be live. If they were just episodes,
because we could that's actually not a bad idea. I'm sitting here, ideas for we could start recording, say May or June, and just put them out and schedule them out to September 1st, September 2nd, September 3rd. That's really not a bad idea. I mean, we could literally start whenever.
And a few big titles, you do those live, but you save a lot of them, and you could talk about everything. Hell, if you were really serious about it, you could go in order.
Yeah, that's even not. Damn, Harvey with the freaking ideas.
Hell, September 1st drops, and you start with Carrie. And then you do this stuff. I'm telling you, man. I don't know. I couldn't make every episode, but I'd be listening. I'm thinking there's so much fun that you can do.
We could have Harvey back to pop in from time to time as well.
Dude, of course.
We could. That's the beauty too, because so the one thing I've learned over the last year is doing these, especially last year, we got. Believe it or not, Shanna had not had a whole lot of experience in the Stephen King world, and she came on for Carrie and The Shining, and then we've got her coming back. So, in case everybody has forgotten, Literature Reapers is coming back this month.
Yay!
And Shanna picked the book that we're going to discuss, and episode with An Evening at the Movies. Ironically, it's September, so it's going to be Stephen King, but we're going to do the book and the OG miniseries of The Stand.
That's a whole different arena. The Stand, that's a whole. Oh my God, that's a week. You could just talk about The Stand for a week. Oh my God.
Yeah, I was gonna say the book is like that thick too.
Oh,
so I'm looking forward to that. Amanda, not as much. She has never read The Stand.
Oh,
and she only watched the miniseries one time.
Okay.
So, but we're gonna do it. So we've got that coming up for everybody to look forward to, as well as our episode with Chris, where we're going to talk about Christine. We're going to talk about Cat's Eye, ironically, another Drew Barrymore movie as well. So, and then next month we've got Halloween Horror Fest coming up, and November we're going to talk about John Grisham movies as well.
Oh, nice. That's a nice.
So,
okay.
We've got The Firm, we've got Pelican Brief, we've got The Client, and I believe Runaway Jury coming up in November.
You're doing The Time to Kill also, right? You're doing The Time to Kill also, right?
So,
Okay. Well, she's got to hear. She's got to hear. Okay. Well, she's got to hear. 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 She's got
Well, Yeah, that's almost a freaking given.
Yeah, I would assume. Yeah, you have to do
A
that.
Time to Kill is one of the greatest of all time.
Definitely. Hmm.
And then, obviously, December, we'll probably go down the road to holiday movies as well. But also, really quick, before we get far down the road, and I wish Amanda was here for me to do this, but next year on the podcast, we're going to dedicate an entire month to honoring the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network. So you will get a month's worth of me and Amanda. We're going to randomly pair up the network. Those two people will get to pick the movie that we're going to do. They'll come on the show and we'll discuss the movie, four of us at the same time. We do have an odd number of people in the network though, so we haven't quite figured out how whether the odd person is going to get to go alone or whether they'll just pair up with Amanda or whatever the case may be. But we definitely have something big for the entire month of the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network coming up in the
Sounds
new year.
good.
So
Sounds good.
definitely stay tuned for that. I'm curious to see who the randomizer sticks Harvey with.
Yeah, well, that makes it so interesting. I love all kinds of movies. Let's see who I end up with. If it's me and CJ will watch something
Well,
ridiculous. Who knows?
well, that's the thing. Like it could be Harvey and CJ. It could be Harvey and Shanna. It could be, uh, Shanna and Cam. Oh Lord,
Yeah,
some of
I
the possibilities for matchups, and the way it matches up will definitely determine what kind of movie gets picked to be discussed too.
Oh,
So
definitely.
you're not going to know until we get to that point. So
Yep.
sometime around the first of the year, we'll start randomizing everything out and let everybody know who they're matched up with so that they can start making the plans and we'll go from there. But I am excited for that idea. It's an idea that just popped into my head a couple of days ago and everybody seemed to love it. So we're going to run with it.
All right.
So, Mr. Mr. Harvey, thank you for being here this morning and sharing your love for the fire with us. I feel like this was so much fun. Why the hell don't we do it again tomorrow?
You know what? I like that idea. I will. I'll be back. Let's do this tomorrow. Sounds like a plan.
Okay. I feel like, and we'll talk about a psychotic automobile. I've got
Mm.
some good discussion topics for that one as well.
Ah.
So,
Ah.
but you're gonna have to tune in tomorrow at about. I'm not going solid with the time yet because Harvey's going to be talking about some yacht rock tomorrow morning on the Masturbators Presents Bracket Reviews. So if you're looking to listen to something live, you can definitely go check that out tomorrow morning as well. And then as soon as that's done, just flip right over to my page and you can watch Harvey and I go live and talk about Christine as well.
Sounds good.
So definitely thank you for being here again for life, at least for tomorrow. And we hope everybody comes back for an evening at the movies. Have a good day, guys. Vote for Kasey.